It seems like a bit of a gimmick.
Some companies are hoping to see CCTV evolve yet further.
What's fascinating about this innovation is that Nick here is not only capturing his environment with a wearable camera, giving him a much more in-your-face perspective than you get with your typical CCTV camera, but that feed is instantaneously being transmitted back to a wireless node, so it can be monitored as it happens.
Criminals are opportunistic, and they see that, banks are now well protected through CCTV and physical security, so new crime evolves, so new technologies must evolve to stop those crimes.
Tim Close is 802 Global's Sales and Marketing Director.
And all sorts of new applications are happening with pubs all closing at the same time. We have issues where they want to try and control behaviour at taxi ranks, for example. New applications such as enforcing no smoking areas in public spaces. Again, if they can get that information real time back to a control room, much faster decisions can be made to stop the situation.
These various next-stage CCTV technologies may well solve problems, but they raise questions too.
James Bamford is one of the plaintiffs in the ACLU's lawsuit challenging the NSA warrantless surveillance program. He is a journalist and best-selling author who has won acclaim for shedding light on the secretive National Security Agency, and you may be familiar with one of his books. His 1982 book, The Puzzle Palace, was such a comprehensive description of the NSA and its practices that the agency tried to suppress its publication. He followed up with more insights in 2001 with Body of Secrets, Anatomy of the Ultra-Secret NSA. Mr. Bamford spent 9 years as an investigative producer for ABC News. His articles on intelligence and national security issues appear regularly in publications such as the New York Times, the Washington Post, Rolling Stone, and Atlantic Monthly. You will also hear from Chris Calabrese, Program Counsel of the National ACLU's Program on Technology and Liberty, where he's worked for 3 years. Mr. Calabrese has spoken and written on privacy and information technology cases and issues, including national ID card, data mining, and the ever-growing surveillance society. Mr. Calabrese also comes from experience dealing with legislative issues. He worked for the majority Senate leader in the Massachusetts legislature on issues regarding privacy. And I'm very pleased to welcome both of them to educate us today on these very important issues.
Thanks, Jesse, very much. And I appreciate being here with the ACLU of Washington. When I began writing on NSA many years ago, my first book, Puzzle Palace, came out in 1982, almost nobody had ever heard of NSA, and I don't mean just the public. For example, when I was doing the book tour, one of the people that I shared a car with going to one of the studios was Senator Bill Bradley of New Jersey, and he was going to talk about the economy, I was going to talk about my book, and he said, what's your book about? And I said, it's about NSA, the National Security Agency. And he said, what's that? So I ended up spending 15 minutes explaining to the senior senator from New Jersey what the largest intelligence agency was. And then when we got on the program, the first question the host asked was, how secret is NSA? And I just couldn't resist it. I said, even Senator Bradley said he'd never heard of it. And he took a separate car back to the hotel after that. And the next day, his aide called up and said, that was sort of below the belt. And I said, what do you mean? He's a senator. You should know what the largest intelligence agency is. And I said, if I wanted to hit him below the belt, I would have said he probably confused it with the NBA, being a basketball star. So it was a very secret agency at the very beginning. It's still very secret. One other thing, my book got selected as one of the selections for Book of the Month Club. So, like everybody that gets selected, you look at the back of the New York Times book review and there's a little, picture of your jacket there with all the other books. And I saw mine, I really couldn't believe it because it said, the Puzzle Palace, a report on NASA, America's most secret agency, because the ad agency thought I had made a mistake on my own book, since they had never heard of NSA, so they voluntarily changed it. So NSA's gotten a bit more of a profile today, thanks to the ACLU suit, of which I'm a plaintiff. I have to really thank the ACLU because they've come to my rescue numerous times. When I did the Puzzle Palace, the Justice Department threatened me with prosecution because I wouldn't give back certain documents that were given to me by the Attorney General under the Carter administration. And when the Reagan administration came in, they demanded I give them back because they didn't want the information coming out. They were documents that showed illegal activity on the part of NSA. So I refused to give them back, and the ACLU provided me with a very good attorney, and we fought the government, and we won. And the material was in my book. And then the NSA and the Justice Department went down to one of the libraries I used and began pulling stuff off the shelves that I quoted from and locking it away. And again, the ACLU went down and launched a suit along with the American Historical Association, American Library Association. And now again, the ACLU and I are together on suing NSA over violating Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which I'll get into in my little talk here. So what I'm going to talk about today is this whole area of surveillance, NSA surveillance. And I thought what might be useful is just to give a background, because people don't really have much of a background on how prevalent NSA surveillance, NSA and its predecessor agencies, how much their surveillance has been, domestic surveillance over the years, and how little it's ever complied with the law. So let me get into this little slide presentation. I don't know if the lights are too bright right now, or we could turn them down, but anyway, let me get in with it. Yeah, so I hope you all have clearance here. It's a top secret code word. Yeah, the NSA doesn't particularly like this one, but I thought it was more appropriate. So this is the NSA, the National Security Agency. Actually, the symbol of the NSA is that little skeleton key, which means they want to get into everybody's most private doors and so forth. Very appropriate, I think. That's the NSA. It's the largest intelligence agency in the world. It's the most secret intelligence agency also. It occupies an entire city. It's about 3 times the size of the CIA. Far more secret. There's books virtually every week on the CIA. There's only been 2 books ever published on NSA, and I wrote both of them. Nobody from NSA has ever written a book. It's an extremely secret agency. They do it's the largest, most intrusive agency in the country, and it also has the world's largest collection of supercomputers. This is an idea of the extent of it. It's hard to see it all, but it's virtually an entire city. It's a city that consists of more than 50 buildings. They have their own police department, their own fire department. They even have their own film festival there once a year. I mean, it's a very interesting place. I'm one of the few people that have been through it a number of times, and for a lot of reasons, I've been in and out of there a number of times. I mean, they actually, threatened me with prosecution in my first book, and then when my second book came out, they actually had a book signing for me at NSA. So, I sort of alternate. I'm a good guy, then I'm a bad guy. I'm a good guy, I'm a bad guy. Now I'm suing NSA again, so now I'm a bad guy again. So. Again, this is the inside of NSA. It's an agency that very few people have heard about, and they like to keep it that way. It's the only agency that's basically excluded from the Freedom of Information Act. Before it was a big city, it was a small. This is how it began, basically, back in around 1920. This building on your left there was the home of the American Black Chamber. That was the original name of what the predecessor to NSA was. That was the interception and code-breaking organization back in 1920, and they fit the entire organization into this one brownstone apartment building in New York City. The person who ran it was Herbert O. Yardley, who had run MI8, which was a code-breaking organization during World War I. And then he headed the civilian organization, this Black Chamber, beginning around 1920. And it was an extremely secret agency during, or really secret organization during the 1920s.